A loyal housemaid speaks up about a woman's deception and is destroyed for it. Imprisoned for defamation, her reputation shattered, her voice silenced, but she didn't know that someone had been watching from the shadows all along. Someone who saw the truth when no one else would listen. A young boy, armed with nothing but a phone and unwavering determination. What he documented would become undeniable proof, and when he finally revealed it in open court, it would expose a lie so complete that even denial became impossible. But the real shock came after, because even faced with irrefutable evidence, some people still couldn't accept the truth. Until he made one final move that left everyone absolutely speechless. Ethan Campbell stood at a crossroads between grief and hope. His wife had been gone for over a year, and the silence in his mansion felt suffocating. He threw himself into caring for his young son Noah, a quiet boy who seemed to carry his father's sadness in his own small shoulders. Then Olivia Turner walked into his life. She was elegant, articulate, and possessed an almost supernatural ability to say exactly what Ethan needed to hear. She spoke about his loss with genuine sympathy. She showed interest in Noah with practiced warmth. She offered companionship to a man drowning in isolation. Within weeks, Ethan believed he'd found a second chance at happiness. Martha Collins, who had worked in the mansion for years, noticed immediately that something was wrong. She had known Ethan's late wife. She had watched the family grow. She understood the rhythms of genuine connection and authentic care. What she saw in Olivia's behavior didn't match those things. Martha observed the small inconsistencies, stories that changed slightly, emotional displays that seemed calculated, a coldness toward Noah that only surfaced when Ethan wasn't watching. She noticed how Olivia positioned herself at the center of Ethan's attention while simultaneously keeping him isolated from other perspectives. But Martha was a housekeeper, and Olivia was the glamorous woman Ethan had chosen. Martha's concerns were easy for him to dismiss. When Olivia announced she was pregnant, Ethan felt something shift inside him. A second chance, a family restored, a future that felt real again. He didn't question the announcement. He didn't ask for details. He wanted to believe, so he did. Noah, however, grew quieter. The boy who had already lost his mother seemed to sense something predatory in Olivia's presence. He avoided her when possible, clung to Martha when afraid, and watched the woman with the wary eyes of someone who didn't trust her. Martha saw all of it. She began keeping mental notes of the inconsistencies. Olivia claimed regular doctor visits but cancelled them constantly. She spoke of pregnancy symptoms one day and showed no signs the next. She positioned her body in strange ways, sometimes pressing her stomach as though adjusting something underneath her clothes. Martha wanted to speak up, but she also knew how quickly a voice like hers could be silenced. The wedding preparations accelerated. Ethan floated through the mansion in a state of romantic euphoria, planning details, celebrating announcements, completely blind to the quiet warning signs Martha tried to convey through concerned glances and carefully worded questions. Olivia moved through it all with calculated grace, accepting congratulations, cradling her growing belly, playing the role of expectant bride with flawless precision. The day of the wedding, Martha stood at the back of the ceremony watching. The guests were beautiful, the decorations perfect, the moment picturesque. Ethan looked happier than he had in months, and Noah sat alone, small and afraid, watching his father embrace someone Noah instinctively distrusted. Martha felt the weight of what she knew pressing down on her. She could stay silent and watch this deception unfold, or she could speak and risk everything. She spoke. In front of all the guests, in front of Ethan, in front of everyone, Martha announced that Olivia's pregnancy was fake, that the entire situation was orchestrated, that she had seen the proof of the lie. The moment the words left her mouth, the room exploded. Olivia began to cry, holding her stomach and claiming emotional trauma. Her lawyers, yes, she had lawyers waiting, began documenting the accusation as an attack. Ethan's face turned red with a mix of humiliation and rage. He didn't ask Martha questions. He didn't investigate. He simply chose to believe the woman he loved over the woman who had served his family loyally for years. By the time the guests left, Martha was already being sued. The legal process was brutal. Martha had no money for lawyers, no resources for investigators, no way to gather the kind of documentation that would hold weight in court. She had only her observations, her instincts, and the truth she believed with absolute certainty. Olivia, by contrast, arrived with medical documents that appeared legitimate, with specialists willing to testify, with a legal team prepared to present her as a victim of harassment and defamation. The trial was one-sided. Martha stood alone while Olivia demonstrated emotional fragility and displayed apparent medical records. The judge ruled swiftly. Guilty of defamation, emotional damage confirmed, 15 years in prison. The handcuffs around Martha's wrists felt like the final punctuation mark on her life. Noah watched from the back of the courtroom as the woman who had protected him was led away like a criminal. He didn't understand all the legal language, but he understood the essential truth. Martha had been punished for speaking what she believed was right, and his father had let it happen. That night, after returning to the mansion, Noah made a decision that would require more courage than any adult had shown. He would gather evidence himself. He began quietly, carefully, using a phone he kept hidden. He recorded Olivia when she thought she was alone. He captured moments where her behavior contradicted her claims. The way she moved when unwatched, the devices she pressed against her stomach, the conversations she had where her mask slipped away. He searched her room methodically, finding the objects that made no sense for a pregnant woman to possess. Padding, belts, fabric pieces that could construct a fake belly. He found makeup items, disguised materials, things that suggested this entire persona was manufactured. He organized everything in a box under his bed. Videos, photographs, written observations, sketches explaining what he'd seen. Night after night he worked in silence, understanding that his father wouldn't believe him, that Olivia would never admit the truth, that he alone was responsible for gathering proof. The work was exhausting and terrifying. If Olivia discovered what he was doing, he didn't know how she would respond. A woman capable of deceiving an entire household, destroying a loyal servant's life, and manipulating a grieving man was capable of anything. But Noah thought of Martha sitting somewhere alone, imprisoned for telling the truth, and that thought was stronger than his fear. When he finally felt the evidence was complete, Noah made his way to Martha's small house. When she opened the door and saw him standing there, her face crumpled with emotion. They spent hours reviewing everything he had gathered. Martha watched the videos with growing hope. She saw clearly what she had suspected, Olivia adjusting fake devices, forgetting to maintain her pretense, revealing the coldness beneath her performance. For the first time since her conviction, Martha felt like fighting back wasn't futile. The new court date arrived. Martha carried Noah's evidence in a folder, prepared to present it without legal representation, without professional help, with only the truth she believed in and a child's courage to stand beside her. The judge reviewed the recordings. Some were blurry, some had poor audio. Olivia's lawyers immediately claimed the evidence was unreliable, that it was manipulated, that a child had been emotionally exploited to create false proof. The courtroom remained uncertain. The evidence was real, but it wasn't perfect. The child's documentation lacked the polish and professionalism courts typically relied on. Olivia maintained her calm denial. She claimed Martha had influenced Noah, manipulated a vulnerable child into creating fabricated evidence. She painted herself as victimized, as someone whose life was being destroyed by a jealous servant and a confused boy. The judge seemed unconvinced by both sides, neither the perfectly packaged lie nor the imperfectly documented truth. Then Noah stood up. Without warning, without permission, the boy ran forward and grabbed the front of Olivia's dress with both hands. He pulled with every ounce of his strength. The fabric tore, and there, attached to her stomach where everyone in the courtroom could see, was the fake belly, padding, straps, the complete apparatus of her deception, exposed in an instant that no one could deny, no one could reframe, no one could hide from. The courtroom erupted. Olivia's composure shattered. She tried to cover herself, tried to explain, tried to salvage something from the ruins of her exposure, but there was nothing left to salvage. The truth was visible, undeniable, absolute. Ethan sat frozen, staring at the fake belly, at Olivia's panic, at his own stupidity staring back at him. For months he had believed her. He had trusted her. He had destroyed Martha's life on her behalf, and it had all been a lie so complete that only his own son had possessed the courage to reveal it. The judge declared Martha innocent immediately. All charges were dropped. The courtroom, people who had watched her be sentenced just months earlier, now looked at her differently. They saw not a vengeful liar, but a woman who had been right all along, destroyed for telling the truth, and vindicated only through the bravery of a child. Olivia was taken into custody, still protesting, still denying, still unable to accept that her performance had been exposed in the most public, undeniable way possible. But even that wasn't the final moment of truth. As Martha and Noah prepared to leave the courtroom, Olivia, being led away in handcuffs, turned back one last time. She screamed that it was all fake, that the belly was a plant, that Noah had been coached, that Martha had orchestrated everything to ruin her life, and the judge, with quiet authority, asked one simple question. If the belly is fake, then what exactly is attached to your body? Olivia's mouth opened. No words came out. Because the truth was that she was standing in front of the entire courtroom, wearing nothing but a dress that had been torn away, exposing the apparatus that proved her entire story was fabricated. Even she couldn't deny that. As she was led from the courtroom, the silence was absolute. Not angry silence, not confused silence, but the silence of people who had witnessed a truth so complete, so undeniable, that there was simply nothing left to say. Martha stood in the hallway afterward with Noah beside her. Ethan approached slowly, his face carved from regret. He apologized, words that seemed insufficient for what he had done, but also necessary to speak. He offered financial restitution, offered recognition of her years of service, offered acknowledgement that he had failed. Martha didn't embrace him. She didn't forgive him immediately, but she acknowledged his words, and in that acknowledgement was the beginning of possible healing. Noah held Martha's hand as they walked outside, away from the courtroom, away from the lies, away from the year of pain and injustice. The truth, Martha had learned, didn't always triumph immediately. Sometimes it required a loyal servant to be destroyed. Sometimes it required a child to sacrifice his safety and trust his own instincts. Sometimes it required the most public exposure imaginable, but it did eventually triumph, and that was everything.